guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited today because I have my really good friend Nita as a guest on my vlog today. So normally we just do this pretty much every weekend. We pour ourselves a glass of wine and have some cheese and talk about the world's issues and all the things that we feel and all the things that are dragging us down. But today we thought we'd just record it so that it makes life easier for me to make a vlog this week. What are we talking about today, Nita?
Today our topic's going to be I guess what it means to be woke, and I guess sometimes the burden that carries, as well as of course how important it is, and the kind of self-care that's required to carry on carry on living while being woke.
So I guess the gist of it all is we're going to talk about how hard it is to be woke, especially as a person of color, especially as a woman on a day-to-day basis where you're meeting and coming across intentionally ignorant people like quite regularly. There's so many people who still don't understand racism and what that implies, and the history of racism and colonization and colonialism and imperialism and all those things. But why I really wanted to make this vlog today is because I've had colonialism on my mind. I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks, about how colonization has literally changed the world in so many ways, economically, yes, but also socially, and it has changed our perceptions as a world, and thinking about why some people's lives or some people from certain countries' lives are more or less important than others, thinking about the recent terrorist attacks in Afghanistan during the season of Ramadan that no one's talking about, but there are other terror attacks that are happening in Western countries that a lot of people are talking about. There is not that same sense of equality when it comes to these things happening. I think the history of colonization has brought about our present world to be in a place where some places, some people are more important than others, and I think it's just really hard to be very conscious of that as people from countries that have been colonized. I'm sorry, we didn't even go into anything about Nita, which is absolutely horrific. Oh, I'm so bad at this.
I think you're already giving quite good background. I think the details are almost, well, they're important, but I think you're trying to make a bigger point, which is important. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself before we go deeper into this whole being woke as fuck situation.
Yeah, sure. Well, I like to think of myself as a global citizen. My heritage is Kenyan. I've been here for, I guess, 3.5 years at this point and counting.
Here is Melbourne.
Here is Melbourne, of course, and we've had a beautiful friendship where we speak about all these issues and more all the time.
And Nita is like one of my work as fuck friends, because she's just my work friend. Well, it's also because I feel like when I have all these heavy conversations in my heart and my head, I always reach out to Nita. I'm like, help me, we need to talk about these things so I can understand, or even just vent about the things that are happening in the world around us. And I think to think about, if you are a person of color, I'm sure you will relate to this, that a lot of times you're looking at the world from a different, completely different perspective. I mean, we talk about racism all the time, and we talk about how it affects you on a daily basis, and you think about it on a daily basis. And, even though Melbourne's a beautiful city where we would like to think that, people are not racist, but if you did have conversations with people of color, you would realize that there are still a lot of incidents that happen on a daily basis where people are encountering a lot of racist kind of hate speech or racism. So, and you've probably experienced a bit of that in Melbourne, I think.
Yes, well, definitely. I think as a person of color, these questions always play out in your mind, and I think even more than that, of course, when you think about Indigenous people in this country, which I think is first and foremost, platform that you'd want to start to think about racism in Australia from. I do think, yes, definitely what you said, the fact that, especially when it comes to news media reporting certain incidents, it seems as if some lives are more important than others, which is actually quite a tragic thing. And, so speaking about also ways that we can think to, I guess, to mediate this, it's also about, I suppose, selecting what sources that we go to for the news, and refusing to accept this paradigm, really, that's, Fox News type paradigm that some lives are more important than others. But that aside, of course, this really is a reality for a lot of people of color, daily reality. And what you're saying about a lot of people not being I guess not realizing these realities of colonialism, imperialism, and racism on a daily basis. I'm pretty I guess optimistic that this is starting to change. So I do think that people are increasingly becoming a lot more informed, and there's definitely a change in the way young people perceive the world. I think there's increasingly a lack of acceptance of a lot of the old systems, that have I guess been in place, I guess extreme capitalism and imperialism, and their offspring, racism and sexism and so on. So I am optimistic that this is changing. At the same time, though, I know that we always encounter situations in which you hear something or you perceive something, and you quickly realize that you can't let it go, and it's always a real tension between about what to do. There is this understanding, of course, that silence is violence, but again, how militant do we want to be in our daily lives? How much do we, how much do you let go? And how much do you, choose to, counteract there and then? I think there's definitely something to be said for choosing your battles. I think you definitely can't, in every situation, if these microaggressions are happening on a constant basis, you can't choose to tackle everything, but there's definitely situations in which that your silence can be violence, and especially violence against you yourself as a person of color. So I think this is the first important question. Just where do you mediate, and where do you choose to I guess just to stay out? I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
In recent days, I feel like I'm just really exhausted, and I think I've picked, I won't say fights, but I've decided to have a lot of conversations. And I think having those conversations where you feel like you're just running into a wall over and over and over and over and over again, is just absolutely exhausting. And that's how I feel. And this is something we've talked about earlier about why must the oppressor or oppressed, which is in this case people of color, have to educate the oppressor? Why must people of color have to point out white privilege to people? And I'm not saying particularly racist people, just anybody, like you could be having a very innocent conversation with your friend, and that could turn into a conversation about race, where you find yourself literally trying to explain the whole history of racism, and they're like, well, no. And you're just like,
get over it.
Get over it. That was so long ago.
That's happening now.
Yeah, it's happening now, but also there are a lot of people who choose to be central about that idea, and who just say, oh, if I'm not supporting it or if I'm not condemning it, then I'm neutral to it. But like you said, silence is violence. And if you don't choose a side, or if you don't choose a side, if you're not going to say something, you're still saying something by not saying something.
That's right, because you're upholding a system that already exists, and the system that exists is not neutral at all. So in a sense, being neutral isn't really a position that exists in the current world today.
So talking about a lot of issues such as colonialism and racism that we do talk about on a daily basis, and we discuss all the time, we also have realized that we do live in our bubbles, and that there are a lot of people out there who don't talk about this and don't care about this because it does not affect them. And I guess sometimes pointing out to those people, and they could be your best friends, they could have nothing to do with anything, they could just be living their life, doing whatever. But I think recently I literally felt like I'd taken it upon myself to have these conversations with everyone about racism and colonialism, and I was really exhausting myself to the limit that in the past few weeks I've just felt very bitter about the world, very unhappy with what's happening in the world. And I think sometimes it's great to be woke, and it's great to be really conscious of inequalities and injustices around you, but I think the takeaway message from this video is, what are things you can do to take care of yourself and to not get burnt out in this long marathon of I guess educating other people about racism and colonialism, and how to fill your cup and take care of yourself while being woke. You can be woke and you can be conscious about the world, but you also need to like take a step back and just give yourself that downtime to relax, and like you said, you know, you need to pick your fights. So one of the things that I had been doing a lot earlier in the year and then last year was meditate. I was like meditating every morning and really finding my calm, because sometimes you forget when you're having these conversations with people that it's so abstract to them that they just don't get it. So sometimes it's really hard to be tolerant, and I think meditation is one thing that you keep your center and you're able to kind of put things in that perspective and just see it in that way. Even though you get very exhausted and very annoyed, at least, you know, at the end of the day you can like calm yourself down and you have power over your brain to not let it go out of hand, and so you can continue to be tolerant and loving of these people, even though they probably don't always understand where you're coming from.
Well, first of all, I have to say I feel like you're doing God's work by, you know, having conversations with everyone, and I think it really is so important to again, you know, get step out of your bubble and really engage in all these conversations. But to speak to what you said earlier about I guess educating people and the burden being on people who are already oppressed, you know, the double burden of actually having these conversations to people who can actually source information elsewhere. I think that's an unfair burden that's placed on, you know, oppressed peoples and peoples of color, unfortunately. And much as I agree it's important to have these conversations, I think it's also completely justifiable to decide that, you know, perhaps that's also not necessarily a duty if you feel like it's taking a toll on you. And I think in addition to, yeah, you know, of course, these self-care strategies, if you're going to fight the good fight, there's definitely also surrounding yourself with like-minded people, surrounding yourself with people who understand, I guess, these questions that we've brought up, that we've talked about today. There's, you know, being in communities where you can have these conversations and in a safe space. And of course, you know, definitely having these conversations in person is quite beneficial, but also there's so many online communities of, you know, we always think about all these people who, maybe something I can leave some links below, but anyway, there are all these places you can go to find nurturing, and yeah, to basically just reach out. I think that's so important to know that you're not in this alone, and, you know, to gain that energy from other people. Yeah. And of course, yeah, self-care is so important. So meditation, like you said, I think that would be definitely quite beneficial. And I mean, just the usual things that sound like boring self-care, like, you know, eating well, sleeping well, taking a break, you know, doing fun things. Much as this is a reality that's maybe inescapable in, you know, in certain people's lives, there's definitely a lot of time that you can check out and just be. So yeah. Don't
get too exhausted like I have been the past couple of weeks. Take care of yourself and do what you need to do. And everyone has different ways of like kind of letting go and taking care of themselves. But yeah, I think those are a few things that we were talking about today, and we thought that'd be really good for people out there who are probably in the same boat as us, as people of color, trying to wade through life, trying to do our best to find a balance between being conscious but also having fun and living, you know, living your life without always having those kind of, well, without always thinking about some really deep stuff, because sometimes you just need to let go and take a break. So thank you for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you, Nita, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll put on some links below for some groups and communities that you could follow or read up on to find some more support, and to know that you're not alone in feeling exhausted and in feeling just upset and sometimes even angry at the world. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys.